Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today is February 18th, 2026, and I just want you to picture the scene. Wembley Stadium, maybe the Tokyo Dome, lights are down, and thousands of people are just screaming.
It's a scene that, frankly, shouldn't even be happening.
Right. I mean, if you look at the trajectory of music history, bands usually they fade away. They don't disappear for 7 years after a tragedy, one that completely shatters their foundation, only to come back and arguably be bigger than they were before.
Exactly. What Linkin Park is doing right now in 2026, dominating charts, selling out this massive world tour, it's a statistical anomaly. It just doesn't happen.
Yeah.
Most bands that lose a frontman as iconic as Chester Bennington, they either fold immediately or, they become a nostalgia act playing state fairs.
But Linkin Park isn't doing the state fair circuit. They're headlining stadiums. So our mission today isn't just to, geek out over the new set list. We really need to unpack the how. How does a band survive? Rejection, tragedy, a major lineup change, and massive controversy to stay relevant for almost 3 decades.
It's a study in resilience and reinvention, really.
So let's start with right now, the current era. Because this comeback didn't just happen overnight. The engine started revving back up, late 2024?
Yep, late 2024. And they made a choice that I think surprised a lot of people.
Which was?
They didn't try to hide that things were different. They actually leaned right into it. The album that came out November 2024 was called From Zero.
And that title, it's doing a lot of heavy lifting. I caught that in the notes. It's a double entendre. Right?
Well, it is. From Zero is, obviously about starting over after the hiatus after Chester's death in 2017. But it's also a deep cut for the fans.
Yeah.
Zero, spelled with an X, was the band's original name back in the late 90s, before Chester even joined. So the title kind of bridges their very first start with their newest one.
But a new iteration meant bringing in new people. And this is really where the friction started.
Oh.
When they announced the return, the lineup had shifted a lot.
It was a shock to the system for a lot of fans. You had the core architects back, Mike Shinoda, Brad Delson, Dave Farrell, Joe Hahn. But Rob Borden, the original drummer,
he wasn't there.
He didn't return, and he'd been there since high school. So they brought in Colin Britton, who's a great producer and songwriter in his own right, not just a drummer, but let's be real.
The headline wasn't about the drums.
Not at all. It was about the microphone.
Emily Armstrong.
The new co-vocalist, formerly of the band Dead Sarah.
And I was listening to the interviews with Mike Shinoda, and he was so specific with his wording. He never said she was replacing Chester.
No. And that's key. Replacement implies you're just trying to copy what was lost. Shinoda kept describing the new dynamic as empowering. He said when they got in a room with Emily and Colin, it wasn't about nostalgia. It was about this new, raw energy.
Like they were onto something that could stand on its own 2 feet.
Exactly. And if you look at the charts, the public agreed. The Emptiness Machine went straight to #1. Heavy as the Crown becomes the anthem for League of Legends.
So commercially, it was an immediate success.
What?
And we have to talk about this.
Yeah.
The social reception was complicated.
Complicated is putting it mildly. There was a very real, very intense storm cloud hanging right over the start of this whole thing.
Yeah, let's get into that because you might see the success but miss the turmoil under the surface. This wasn't just random internet hate. It came from inside the house, so to speak.
It did. Emily Bennington, Chester's son, was incredibly vocal. He put up this long critique on social media. It was really difficult to read. He basically accused Mike Shinoda of quietly erasing his father's legacy.
And the timing made it so much worse, didn't it?
That was the thing. Amy pointed out that the big announcement happened during Suicide Prevention Month. He felt it was a betrayal of the trust that fans had in the band. And look, when the son of the icon says, "This feels wrong," that carries a lot of weight.
It puts the fans in a terrible position. It forces them to pick a side. But the controversy didn't even stop there. People started digging into Emily Armstrong's past.
And things got murky very, very quickly. This was the big headline in late 2024. People found connections suggesting she had ties to Scientology, and more specifically, that she'd attended a court hearing for Danny Masterson.
Masterson, the actor who was convicted of rape.
Correct. And you have to understand the specific sensitivity here. Chester Bennington was a survivor of sexual abuse. He was incredibly open about that trauma.
Right.
So for the new singer to be linked, even tangentially, to someone convicted of sexual assault, it just felt like a violation of the band's entire ethos. You had guys like Cedric Bixler-Zavala from the Mars Volta being really loud about this.
But we do need to look at the whole picture here. Emily didn't stay silent. She put out a statement. What was her defense exactly?
She addressed it head on. She said she went to one early hearing to support someone she thought was a friend at the time. But she also said she realized very quickly she shouldn't have been there and that she had, completely misjudged him.
So she admitted it was a mistake.
She did. And she stated very explicitly that she hasn't spoken to him since and that she absolutely does not condone abuse or violence against women. She tried to sever that tie immediately.
It's a heavy baggage to carry onto a stage, though, isn't it? You're trying to sing these anthems of liberation while this narrative is just swirling around you.
It is. But in a weird way, that struggle, fighting for acceptance, fighting through the noise, that's kind of baked into Linkin Park's DNA.
That's true.
If you look back at their history, they have never had an easy path.
That is the perfect pivot to their origin story, because I was looking at the numbers in our notes, and I genuinely thought it was a typo. 42 rejections.
42. And you have to put that in context. This is the late 90s. The music industry was very, very segmented.
Oh, right. You had TRL with the Backstreet Boys on one side.
And you had Korn and Limp Bizkit on the other. Exactly.
Yeah.
And here comes this band, Zero, trying to fuse hip-hop and electronic music and heavy rock.
So the rock labels told them,
"There's too much rapping. Get rid of the rapper." And the hip-hop label said, "There's too much guitar." They were musically homeless.
42 times. 42 executives looked them in the eye and said, "This won't work."
They were drowning, just playing showcases to empty rooms or unimpressed suits. They needed a champion.
And they found one. Jeff Blue.
Jeff Blue, a VP at Warner Bros. He was the one guy who got it. But even he knew the puzzle wasn't complete. The music was interesting, but they were missing a frontman who could bridge those two worlds. The rap and the rock.
Which brings us to, I think, the most legendary audition story in rock history. March 1999. Chester Bennington is in Arizona. It's his 23rd birthday party.
And he leaves his own party.
Walks out on his own birthday cake to go record vocals over a demo tape that Jeff Blue sent him.
And the notes on why he got the job, it wasn't just his range. It was the urgency. That's the word that just keeps coming up. His voice was described as genuine, vulnerable, and urgent. Plenty of guys could scream. Plenty could sing pretty melodies. Chester. He sounded like he was fighting for his life on that tape.
So they get the guy. They have the sound. They changed the name to Hybrid Theory, which is a great name.
But legally unavailable. Some other band had it.
So they had to change it again.
Yeah.
And this is my favorite detail because it's so delightfully practical. The name Linkin Park. It wasn't some deep philosophical thing, was it?
Not at all.
Yeah.
Chester suggested Linkin Park, spelled the normal way, because there's a Linkin Park in basically every town in America. It felt local no matter where you were, relatable.
But the internet ruined it.
The internet ruined it. The domain linkinpark.com was already taken, and the owner wanted $10,000 for it.
And a band that's been rejected 42 times probably does not have 10 grand lying around.
They were broke, so they made a compromise. They just changed the spelling. Linkin. Linkinpark.com was available, and it was cheap.
That is just wild to think about. A multi-million-dollar global brand defined by a typo they made to save money on a website.
It fits them perfectly, though. It's scrappy, it's pragmatic, and it worked. They released Hybrid Theory, keeping the old name as the album title, in October 2000, and it becomes the best-selling debut of the entire 21st century.
Diamond certified, that's 10 million copies. And it gave us that iconic image, the soldier on the cover with the dragonfly wings.
The visual definition of nu metal.
But here's a little nugget for you. Those wings were a mistake. I couldn't believe this when I read it.
It's true. It was a stencil art piece, and the wings were on a separate layer in the graphic design file. In the rush to get early promo art done, a layer was just left off a stencil by accident. But when the band saw it, they realized it was the perfect metaphor.
How so?
Well, the soldier represents the heavy, gritty, aggressive side of the music. The wings represent the emotion, the vulnerability, the soaring melodies. It was an accident that perfectly captured the Hybrid Theory.
So they're on top of the world. Sales, fame, everything. But they just refuse to stay comfortable. And this is where that sellout narrative starts to creep in.
It's the curse of a debut that big. Everyone just wanted Hybrid Theory Part 2. And for a bit, with Meteora, they kind of gave him that. But by 2010, with 1,000 Suns, they took a hard left turn.
That album was weird. And I mean that as a compliment, but at the time, people were so confused.
It was a concept album about nuclear war. It had Oppenheimer speeches. It was electronic. It was experimental art rock. It was not the rap rock formula. And it completely divided the fan base.
But the real explosion, the real vitriol, that came later. One More Light, 2017.
That was the pop album, and the backlash was just vicious. Fans accused them of abandoning their roots, chasing trends.
And Chester. He did not take that lightly.
No. And this is where you really see the cracks in the armor. Chester was a deeply emotional person, and he took all that criticism so personally. There was that interview where he told fans to move the F on from hybrid theory.
He jokingly threatened to punch people in the mouth for calling them sellouts.
Yeah, and it sounds aggressive on paper, but when you hear the audio or you look at the context, he just sounds hurt. He sounds like a guy who is just screaming for validation.
He was putting his vulnerability out there in this softer musical package.
Yeah.
And people were just attacking him for it.
Yeah.
It really highlighted how fragile his mental state was at the time.
And then the date that changed everything, July 20, 2017.
The day Chester Bennington died by suicide.
It just stopped the music world. I think everyone remembers where they were when they heard.
It was a shockwave.
Yeah.
Because he wasn't just a rock star. For a whole generation of fans, he was the guy who articulated their own depression. He was the voice that said, "I'm not okay,"
Yeah.
and made you feel less alone.
That tribute concert in October 2017, looking back at the footage, it was beautiful, but it felt like a funeral. It felt like the end.
It did. The band went silent for 7 years. Mike Shinoda released Post-Traumatic, which was his way of processing it all. But Linkin Park is an entity. We all just assumed it was over.
Which brings us back to the miracle of 2026. The fact that they are not just back, but they are playing stadiums. Paris, Dallas, Sao Paulo.
The scale of this tour tells you something important about the legacy, I think.
It does. The fan base didn't shrink in the hiatus, it grew. A whole new generation found Numb and In the End on streaming services.
So when we look at this new lineup, Mike, Emily, Colin, the old guard, what are we actually seeing? Is it a tribute act? Is it a new band with an old name?
I think it's the realization of their original promise.
A hybrid theory.
Exactly. I mean, think about the word hybrid. It's not just about mixing rap and rock anymore now. It's about mixing the past and the future.
It's a hybrid of grief and celebration.
Precisely. It's holding space for the tragedy of losing Chester while also embracing the joy of making music with Emily. And that complexity is why it's working. If they had tried to just pretend the last 7 years didn't happen, it would have failed. But by acknowledging the zero, the restart, they made it authentic.
So they survived the 42 rejections, they survived the sellout accusations, they survived the tragedy, and now they seem to be surviving the controversy of the reunion itself.
It proves that the band is bigger than any single member. It's an idea. It's a place people go to feel understood.
So here's the thought I want to leave you with today. We've traced this whole arc from zero to the stadium lights of 2026, with Emily Armstrong on the mic, bringing a different kind of fire. Have they finally evolved into the ultimate form of Linkin Park?
It's certainly the most resilient form we've ever seen.
We want to know what you think. If you've seen the tour, if you've spun the new record, do you hear the future, or are you missing the past? Does the hybrid still hold up? Let us know. And thanks for diving deep with us.
Take care.